Hello, Carolyn here with my elemental report backs on my trip to Ireland. I had a little break here, but I am back with water, getting back in the flow. All right, I'm going to bring my presentation right up. Things are noisy outside my window. Get this going to, oops, um, this slideshow up here. Okay, water. So called together at the water's edge. And I am going to share with you about some wells and also some connections around water and how everything flows together uh, physically, but also in this mysterious ways. In the tarot, water, the element of water also does relate to mystery. Okay, so we visited a number of wells. The first well that we visited was Ballyvorney, which is in the County Cork. It's a little bit north and east. And it's in an area that's called the Gaeltag, where they still speak Irish. There's a native Irish speaking population, and they promote Irish speaking in the schools so that they are raising native speakers. And I had some lovely encounters and tested out my little bit of Irish that I learned from my Irish Arts Center course. And it was interesting how, to me, some places you go and you don't speak the language and they're like, just they don't want you to speak it, or they a little bit of disdain, all different things. But just that little bit of trying out Irish, really people encouraged it because they're really trying to keep the language vital and alive and people speaking it. And there was a waitress at the place where we stayed, and I said a few words, and then she started speaking to me in Irish. And she knew I didn't really know, but she kept speaking to me and like those clues of what we were doing. I was ordering food. And I learned a word. I learned the word for water, Urshka. So that was very appropriate because we were in the place of water. Ballyvorney, as well as being the site of Gobnut's Well, very famous site of pilgrimage, there just is so much water in that area, running in the wells, running in rivers, running in streams. We'd be walking along the roadways. Seemingly there was no water, but there was that sound of water and just like a little channel running over the road. So Urshka, the word for water, I learned in Ballyvorney in more ways than one. So Saint Gobnut is a saint of this area who has like some of her stories would connect her back to Saint Bridget, but she also has unique stories that she is the patron saint of bees, and that she found her way to this location in Ballyvorney. She wasn't originally from Ballyvorney. She was on the search for the place to create her community, and she had to look for 9 deer. And she found the 9 deer in Ballyvorney. And here, this is a picture of the well. You can see further down in the picture, this is the well. I have some more shots of it. But the well is also very close to a tree. And this happens that these sacred wells are in places of natural beauty. They're connected to trees and rock. And this was the case here. This tree right here, where people tie their strings, their clooties. These is when you're making a prayer, you're having a supplication, you will tie it on the tree. The tree. Saint Gobnut is there has been, they don't know how long there's been pilgrimage here. It's the 12th century, they can trace it, but it was obviously ongoing at that point. So it goes back much further and back to pagan roots, I think it's fairly safe to say. And one of the traditions that they bring out a statue that's a very small statue. I did not see it on purpose. We were there on that day in person. I didn't see it in person. But they bring out the statue and people measure their ribbons, the length of the body, and then they use those ribbons. They bring them home and they tie them as kind of protection, or maybe they might bring them to this tree above the well, somewhere where you can leave and ask for your blessings. So that I want to bring us now to the next picture. Yes, here's the well itself. And above is, this was the image of Gobnat that was around, she's kind of in a cloak, a veil, and she has a rosary, and this is above the well. And this well was below the ancient, it's between kind of, there's the ancient church and the modern church, and they are separated in place. And the well is kind of between them, closer to the ancient site. But it was very much a place in use. People were there. It was not some, archaeological visit for people. People were bringing their clooties. They're just out of the view of this picture. There was like a dish rack with cups and pitchers. Like people were coming and they were drinking this water. They were using this water. They were washing it over themselves, which is what we did as well. And these are kind of entryways to the beyond. I'm reading a little bit now from Moncan McGann, who is Irish, and kind of someone who he's a proponent of the Irish language, and then also looking into like history and things. And this book is called Listening to the Land Speak. And he talks about here how most holy wells are in areas of spectacular beauty, often in groves of trees in the hollows of the landscape, at the edge of waysides, or at liminal points where borders and boundaries meet. Others are hidden in the darkness of underground tunnels, chambers, or caves, and others again are at the edge of the sea where the salt water mixes with fresh water twice daily. There are even some wells that consist of a measure of rainwater held in an indentation of a solid rock. I believe I saw one of those. Their variance and mutability make it clear that they are as much a product of the subconscious and instinctual self as they are of the rational and practical mind. And then he asked, the first question that needs to be asked, though, is why are they holy? Why are some wells regarded as sacred portals of divine energy or the eyes of God, and others just as utilitarian water sources that can be exploited and sullied with impunity? From an empirical standpoint, holy wells are no different from any other natural water source. In fact, any source of fresh spring water on the surface of the earth or in caves or under the sea can become a focus of devotion and thus be labeled holy. So how and why does it happen? It remains a thing of mystery. Even gauging how long a well has been deemed holy is complicated. There are references in old manuscripts to pilgrims going to particular wells 1,500 years ago that still attract devoted visitors to this day. And this is the story of Gobnat's well and the sacred site that is above with her church, because there is a pattern that you say 3 Our Fathers, 3 Hail Marys, 3 Aves, and you do it at these different spots and at this well. And this has been going on for a long, long time. And this other book I have on pilgrimage, they talk about how you can go there in any weathers or any day and see women doing this. That's the notation in that book. And this is a beautiful well, like it's, you very much see it, and it is like you're entering into the dark, the mysterious, the sacred. Okay, let's see if I have something more on Gobnats or if we're moving. Oh, here, yes, how I was saying these wells are used, and there were like, I'll call it kitschy things that were around. And to me, that showed how things were very much still in use. It wasn't precious or controlled by kind of that's what would be the standard, or like a standard church thing, or there were plenty of statues, but here we are with these butterflies that are placed by the statues. And I did my own little bit of adding to this. Like, this was as I went and visited the wells. I didn't feel like I was, just like coming to view and look at something. I felt like the other people were doing, I could participate. So as I do, I carry around tarot cards, and I pulled them out and kind of connected them to the imagery and what was happening. And here we have Mary brings out the magician, who I love this idea of, and I see Mary as really the divine mother, the great goddess in this other form. And she's the magician. She's bringing the divine into our physical world, which is really like what's happening in these holy wells and the other sites that we saw. This other card here is the card that is made with my late partner, John, being the Knight of Cups. And appearing here next, which is a card of great heartedness, right? And in the flow of mystery. And this just came out by Jesus. So I thought, John was not Jesus. I'm not saying that, but maybe it's the heart. And because I think in this, there are many images of Jesus with like his heart showing, and he seems to be pointing to the heart there. That's what I think. So that was some of my participation there in the well. I also did tie a string to the tree. And as we traveled, we had various kind of rituals in the landscape. So, whoops. Trying to advance. Here we go. Oh, butterflies. Butterflies were like the secret visitors throughout the whole trip and even afterwards. And we just saw the butterflies that were there. And we were walking along the roadside. This was just kind of like, it wasn't even a garden in particular. It was just this kind of wild place at the turning of the corner. And here was a butterfly. So this symbol that is rebirth, becoming the caterpillar, letting go of everything, emerging as the butterfly. They migrate as a winged creature, all kind of birds and butterflies and things like that. They travel between the terrestrial to the celestial, bringing us messages from the beyond. So there were lots of butterflies that popped up, not like hugely apparent, but if I looked, I'm like, oh, there are butterflies there. I mentioned the places of natural beauty, places where trees are. This is on the walkway to the well. This amazing tree. We were just like, oh, the tree, like we just stood in awe of the tree for a while. And then beyond the tree, there was this amazing rock. This rock, I'm like, this rock has a personality. This rock is an emergence of the Great Mother in all her shaggy, beautiful mystery. So, and these were on the way to the well. Okay, I'm switching to another well. This is Bridget, who is, along with St. Patrick, really you could say they're like kind of like the mother and father of this Celtic Christian spirituality. And like Gobnet, wells are very important. Although she's a fire goddess. Actually, let me back up. A piece of why Bridget speaks to me in particular is that she is both goddess and saint. She's a synthesizing figure. She brings these traditions together. You don't entirely get rid of one or the other. The Christian version of Bridget brings forth many of the aspects of the goddess and brings them into our life today. And including that she is a fire goddess, and yet you find her in wells. And in Kildare, which is the place where St. Bridget's monastery was, there are also, many kind of landmarks, and there's this wonderful well that we visited. And here is a butterfly again. See, on the cross, there's a butterfly. So the butterfly was popping up. And let's go along here to show you. Yes, this is a place. I mentioned like tying the strings. And I've been talking about how people go and participate at St. Bridget's Well, which, is really well marked. It's really well known. It's closer to Dublin, where everyone, tourists come in through that airport. There's a lot more kind of touristy movement, but also people within Ireland are, concentrated in that area, and they're coming. And here were the things that were tied up. Some people have brought some string, some ribbons, bring it with messages of love. But on this picture on the right, there are just kind of wilder things. Like there's someone's scarf. And I was like feeling like people got there and they were moved and they just took off a piece of clothing and they tied it on. There's a sock. I don't know if you can see it here. I think maybe it's down low here. Someone like took off their sock and tied it to the tree. So they're very much a living tradition, not too tidy. I'm imagining people like spontaneously doing these things. They didn't like plan it. And that really spoke to me of this being a living tradition very powerfully. Okay. Here is Bridget. You see, as I said, she's a fire goddess. So she's got her flame here. And this little spark of red, I brought from my farm, the farm I belong to. There are these little, they're gomphrena. They're like a straw flower. They dry really well. So I have this collection of them. They're kind of my sacred offering that I bring around when I go because they don't have any seeds. They're natural, they're decomposed, they're small, because I wanted to bring a natural offering, but you don't want anything that's going to grow in the landscape. So I brought them for each of the elemental goddesses that we visited. And so I placed, because everyone was doing this, I don't know if you can see here, there's like this little black band here. It's like a belt or a girdle. And like Bridget had a girdle. Bridget did lots of kind of magical things with her clothing, including she was trying to get the land for her first community. And she went to the king and she's like, you need to give me some land. And the king didn't really want to give her land or give her much land. He said, okay, I'll give you as far as your cloak can spread. And she takes off her cloak and she throws it down. And of course, the cloak magically like grows and grows and spreads across these meadows and marshland and all over. And so she got a lot of land for her first community. And of course, then we're dealing with magic. We're going back to the goddess. So that's very beautiful. So back to this little girl. She also, the magical parts of her clothes. So this is someone has like taken off this big belt. I don't think it was like an actual girdle and like thrown it over the statue. So I was like, okay, seems to be, this is the etiquette of this place. So I just put this little red thing because it seemed like it matched the flame. And that was my offering to Bridget. I also, I'm sure I have a picture of this. Let's see. Oh no, wait. Okay, I can tell the story. I had kind of an extra flower, extra one that I had brought. And there were different stones here about the different identities of Bridget, because she is in the goddess form. She's a healer, and she's the patron saint of she is the goddess you turn to for healing, poetry, and smithcraft. And of course, smith crafting, it's very practical, but it's also like a transformation, making metal become, liquid enough to shape it into form. So the transformation. And then Bridget the Saint had a number of different qualities that were transferred in. Like she's a person of peace. She's a person who cares about the earth. So is in climate change. And at the peace stone, I left a flower for the people of Gaza. So once again, like this is how people are interacting with this sacred place. Okay, those are the wells. That's the introduction. Now I'm going to the next flow is this kind of amazing synchronicity between some of the work that I was doing with the tarot and the poetry. As you may remember, I started this trip in Ireland by going to the Cork International Poetry Festival. And as I was there listening to the poets, I would write down like a line that I loved and heard it. And I kept these little notebooks of lines. And then when I got home, I transferred each line to a note card. I got about 40 cards, and they're kind of like another little oracle deck. And these cards, the tarot cards that are here, are the cards that I pulled for the Water Week. This is the Walking the Waves of the Summer Light, the program that I do, going the 4 weeks up to the solstice. We have an elemental theme each week. So, and then we celebrate the solstice, and then we come out and do a little pilgrimage thinking. So this, for my Water Week, I pulled these cards of the moon, which obviously the moon comes at night. It's kind of a card of mystery. the Six of Rivers. These cards, by the way, are from the Shining Tribe, created by Rachel Pollack. And you have here this image, and this is a card of flow and emergence. And then this is the Speaker of Rivers, and this big fish is being followed by the little fish, and there is a line on the tail from a rabbi that says, and on their way they told a tale of such power. So that's written right there. And then at random, by chance, I shuffled the poetry cards and laid them one for each card. And I was just amazed at the resonance between the meanings of the tarot cards and the meanings of the poems. Dara Breen was a wild poet, like he wrote about wolves and night. And I don't think I got this line exactly right, but it totally captivated. Napkin tied to the napkin of night. You know, it's like this, how we're bound together in the darkness, and something mundane can even be it. So here with the moon, the card of the night. And then I wrote this down. Someone was quoting this. We burned the song of her body. Paula Meehan, who's a very kind of a contemporary beloved poet. And I do love her poetry. I've been reading more of it. And so interesting to me with this card, because this is a card of water, but we have this red flower, but it looks like a flame. We burned the song of her body. And I take this line to be also kind of a liberation of the song goes and takes other form. I'm not saying that's what Paula Meehan meant, but I have, working with this line, that's what's come to me. So I'm like, wow, that resonates so much with this. And then this line is from a Welsh poet. They had a Welsh poet that was international. They had Welsh poet, and that was wonderful to read, to hear her speak in Welsh, then she would be in English. And they actually translated some of her poems into Irish, which was a very beautiful exchange between languages, the Irish and the Welsh, that are trying to be preserved and to encourage speakers to continue speaking it. And I love this. But if to be alive is to belong, then we must keep still this song. And this, you know, is the big fish telling a tale, which is like a song, and the fish are there together, they belong together. It resonated so much with me. So how does this work? How does the tarot work? How do these resonances happen? Who knows? Rachel Pollack, she would quote a comedian of her tradition. It's like, you pose a two-part question. How? It's a question the philosophers have explored for millennia. We don't know. Does it work? Yes. Does it happen that there are these resonances? Yes. Okay. And here's a few more. Here we have, once again, the Six of Rivers card. And this, I took it in Kildare. I was walking around with a few tarot cards in my pocket. And this is a statue of Bridget that is in the center of town. You can see here, she's praying, and she's got kind of this flowing clothes on. And of the handful of cards that I happen to be carrying, I pulled up this card, which has such a striking visual of that kind of flow. And then, you know, I'm only doing this right now as I'm making this video. This little red flower is a little bit like the red flower that I brought to Bridget at the well. So there we go. And finally, I'm back home. I'm back home, and I'm still carrying around some various cards. Oh, this must have been the water week, which is the week before the solstice. And I was walking around with a friend. I was in Shelburne Falls. And what is on the ground here is, actually, it's a butterfly. It's a monarch butterfly. You can see from the dots, you can see a little bit. So this is sometimes how I interact. You know, I see something in the world and I pull out a card. And this was the card that emerged with the butterfly. And the butterfly, of course, is just a story of emergence. And you're the caterpillar, you're just going along, and then you get in your cocoon, and the caterpillar totally surrenders its form into ooze. I think it must be an ugly process, really. We make the caterpillar story is very inspiring, and we think about it as the end point of becoming the butterfly. But really, wow, what in darkness and mess, you think you've lost everything, you surrender everything, And actually what happens is the scientists have literally called it imaginal cells. There's just like a new cell. It's different than the caterpillar. It's different than the ooze. It is from going through this process. And this are the cells, one appears and then a few appears. And then these are the cells that start to organize into the butterfly form. And then it allows this emergence. So in the Shining Tribe book, when Rachel Pollack writes about this card, the Six of Rivers, I do believe she makes this reference to, like, after a time of great difficulty, you go through, you emerge. And I think this is helpful to remember in the times we live in, times of such mess and distress and death and destruction, that this can be a time where there are new cells that come to reorganize us. And, you know, they're not just cells. Maybe you're a cell, and you're a cell, and you're a cell that believe in the butterfly potential, not going back to the darkness, the ooze, the destruction of our time. And if we just we believe and we become the imaginal cells, and then we work to make it happen, we can have a butterfly future. So that is what water brought me. Thank you so much for listening. I think that is my last slide. I'm going to stop sharing, and I do still need to make a fire video that will be happening. All right. Thank you so much for listening.